All right, so now 1 o'clock, we'll let everyone, give it a few minutes for everyone to check in online. Have you heard from Mr. Foster?
I have not.
Okay. I see Scott Oakley appears to be.
Oh, he's on. Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm on, Matthew.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Oakley.
Good afternoon.
Okay, so it is now 1:01, and I'd like to go ahead and call the Caswell County Planning Board meeting to order for June 22nd, 2021. I thank everyone for being here today. Hope everyone's doing well. And now we'll take a look at the agenda and entertain the approval of the agenda. All right, if there's no comments, go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Mr. Daniel, second by Mr. Harris. To approve the agenda, all those in favor, please let me know by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. All right, next we have public comments. Mr. Hoagland, we have public comments.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have 2 public comments. And just as a point of information, we have additional public comments, but that'll be for the public hearing for the cell tower.
Yes, sir.
First comment is from Pat Warren at 36 Main Street, Prospect Hill, North Carolina. Good afternoon, planning board members. The planning board received the Southeast Caswell zoning application on June 7th. So according to the UDO, July 7 is the earliest date the planning board can submit comments and a written statement to the Board of Commissioners regarding the ordinance. The moratorium on polluting industries expires on July 6th. Therefore, I trust you to understand the urgency of submitting your response to the Board of Commissioners at the earliest possible opportunity. I am calling on the planning board to schedule a special meeting for July 7, as well as subsequent special meetings as necessary to review and to submit your response to the Board of Commissioners with all deliberate speed. I'm also calling on each planning board member to review the Southeast Caswell zoning ordinance, if you have not already done so, before July 7 in order to be prepared to take action. You have received a hard copy of the ordinance. However, you can find it digitally at caswellcountync.gov by clicking on Planning Department Zoning Documents on the homepage. Thank you for your service to Caswell County and its citizens. The next comment is from Leslie Zimmerman of Leesburg, North Carolina. Here we stand again a year later. Please make the time in your personal calendars to attend a special meeting July 7th to review and respond to the Board of Commissioners regarding zoning in Southeastern Caswell. Remember, Southeastern Caswell voted yes to zoning. Please respect the will of the people. Please find the digital ordinance so you can review the document at your leisure before July 7th. And that's the end of the public comments.
Thank you, Mr. Hoagland. Next on the agenda, item number 4, the approval of the May 2021 meeting minutes. Okay, has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Okay. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the May 2021 meeting minutes for the Caswell County Planning.
After reading the minutes, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the minutes as read.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Motion by Mr. Foster to accept the minutes as read. Second, by Mr. Swan. All those in favor, please let me know by saying aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item number 5, unfinished business, Mr. Hogan. Refresh my memory.
Yeah, we didn't have any unfinished business. The planning board bylaws or rules of organization kind of spell out what's supposed to be on the agenda. So even though there isn't any unfinished business, it's on the agenda. If any planning board members wanted to bring anything up, then there would be an opportunity for them to do so.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hogan.
Yes, sir.
All right, moving on to new business, wireless communications tower public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Hoagland. You presented an application in our agenda packet. By vertical bridge, if you could you give us some background information on the application?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, planning board members, the application that you have.
Excuse me, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Mr. Hoagland. We've got to, I think now would be the appropriate time to go to the public hearing, and we need a motion to do so.
Make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Swan, second by Mr. Harris, to begin the public hearing for the wireless communications tower. All those in favor, please let me know by saying aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay, I apologize, Mr. Hogan.
Not a problem at all.
Floor is now yours, sir.
So the application that you have before you is for a 300-foot wireless communication or cell phone tower. It would be on a property that is approximately 67 acres right off South Highway 86 and Prospect Hill. The property borders Orange County to the south and is more or less behind the Dollar General store that you see there on the west side of the highway. The specific side of the tower would be approximately 310 feet from the Orange County line and about 850 feet behind the Dollar General store. The ordinance requires that we do notify the public in certain ways prior to the public hearing, and that has been done. Specifically, letters were mailed to all adjoining property owners, including property owners in Orange County. An ad was run twice in the Caswell Messenger, June 9th and 16th, and 2 signs were posted in the right-of-way right by the property on June the 11th. So again, the proposed tower will be 300 feet tall with an additional 10-foot tall lightning rod. The tower will have a blinking light per Federal Aviation Administration requirements, and the setbacks of the tower being 310 feet are a little bit more than the 100% standard, which is now the controlling standard of the Unified Development Ordinance. I do have several public comments that were submitted, Mr. Chairman, via email. And again, just like last month, we do have Doug Barker from HK Consulting at Vertical Bridge on the digital call to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, Mr. Hoagland, I think now if you receive public comments, now might be the appropriate time.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First comment is from Eddie DeLuca of Prospect Hill. He says, when I built my house and moved to Caswell County in 1993, cell phones were in their infancy and the internet was at best dial-up and a novelty. Today, the internet is a necessity. My home phone no longer is a hardwired landline, so during storms or when the tower is out for several hours, I must rely on my cell phone. Since the cell signal is non-existent and I am out of touch with the outside world, if there were an emergency such as a fire or a medical issue, the end result could be fatal. My son needed to finish his college classes and to do his final exams online this past year. With no internet and no open library, we needed to take him to South Carolina to stay with family, otherwise to drop out of school. As chair of the Caswell County Recreation Commission, I needed to conduct meetings during the pandemic, but with no internet access, this was impossible. I am not alone in this dilemma. This affects the entire community and has become a very serious issue. We need a cell tower and we need it yesterday. Next comment is from Julie Smith, and she doesn't say exactly where she's located. She says, I live nearby and wholeheartedly support this. Our cell service is terrible. Even running Wi-Fi off a satellite for my internet, I can barely make phone calls. I feel like I'm living in another era. Next comment is from, I believe this is another comment from Eddie DeLuca. Mr. Hoagland, I'm writing to reinforce my concern on the extreme and overdue necessity for a cell tower serving the Prospect Hill area. A while back, a survey went out. I met with you briefly and also offered the use of an appropriate area of my property for construction if needed. The offer is still on if needed. When I built my house in Caswell County in 1993, cell phones were in their infancy and internet was at best a novelty. And it looks like the rest of his statement is a repeat of his earlier statement. The next comment is from Chris DeLuca. Hello, my name is Chris DeLuca. I'm a resident of Prospect Hill, North Carolina, and a college student. I recently heard that there's going to be a vote/caucus about the construction of a cell phone tower across the street from the Dollar General in Prospect Hill. I'm emailing you to give my full support to this. All of my life, it has been a struggle to stay in a hometown as a young person with zero access to the internet or the ability to make a simple phone call. With me being a college student, I have been forced to drive into Orange County just to be able to do simple assignments or to do anything for work. This has made it nearly impossible for me to ever be able to stay in the place that I call home. If this cell tower is constructed, I would be able to hotspot on my phone and do all the work that I couldn't be required on my laptop. Another issue I have with the lack of service is safety. During the school year, my parents live by themselves and have no access to emergency services outside of their landline. If the landline was to go out, they would have no way to get help. To reiterate, I love the peace and comfort of Prospect Hill, but with no service, cell service or internet, it has made it nearly impossible for me to stay in the place that I call home. I hope that this tower will be constructed and I will be able to spend more time at home with my family. Chris DeLuca, 531 Barnwell Road, Prospect Hill. Next comment is from Aletha Broadnax. She says, we need a cell tower. It is long overdue. Cell tower, yes, yes, yes. We need a cell tower, long overdue, bad, and all my neighbors think so too. And the final comment is from Carlisle Broadnax. He says, cell tower, yes, we need a cell tower, long overdue. Sorry, I can't attend the meeting today. And those are all of the comments that I received. Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Hoagland.
Yes, sir.
So it appears we have Mr. Doug Barker online with us. Mr. Barker, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Would you like to make a presentation at this time, sir?
Mr. Chairman, just quickly, if I may interrupt, I'm not sure if any of the residents in attendance have public comments as well, but this may be a good time for that.
Certainly, certainly. Mr. Barker, hold that thought 1 second. You're correct,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Hoagland. We do have individuals present today. Is there anyone in the audience today that would like to speak during this public hearing?
I have a question. What is the range of this tower? How far is the signal?
That would probably be something Mr. Barker can answer.
Well, and the paper said Locust Hill, all up here is Prospect Hill.
She's referring to the one that we approved of last month.
Yes, ma'am. There was a tower application that was before the planning board last month, and it was in the Locust Hill Township.
So it's going to be put in Locust Hill.
Yeah, the planning board approved one for Locust Hill last month. Yes, ma'am.
So when is that going to sprout up?
I don't, Mr. Barker may be able to answer questions about construction.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
She was wondering about the tower in Locust Hill that was approved last month, the possible timeline for construction of that tower.
Our final NEPA approval will be in at the end of September, and we'll start construction within 2 or 3 weeks after that. So October.
And the range of the towers once they're up?
And the range, the coverage range of the tower?
Out there, it depends on topography a lot, but they're going to be looking at somewhere 2 to 4 miles in all directions. So somewhere right around the 3-mile mark in all directions.
Say your name and address for the public.
Dr. Queen Williamson, I live in Locust Hill.
Okay, thank you.
Would the range be the same for the Prospect Hill Tower?
Name and address for public record, please.
Yeah, I'm Beth DeLuca.
Beth DeLuca, okay.
Yeah, I
All
live
right.
on Barnwell Road, Prospect Hill.
Okay.
And I just want to know what the range would be for that one. The same thing, the construction time, and who would be the provider?
I think those would be questions from Mr. Barker.
I don't think.
The range will be very similar out in that area. It's the same height tower, so it'll be very similar, somewhere around the 3 mile mark in all directions. You know, they'll dial it into where they get a little further up and down the roadways, but that's kind of the range of the tower. We're about 1 month behind on this in all aspects. So my final NEPA on this one is due sometime right around the middle of October. So we're probably end of October, beginning of November before construction.
And who would be the provider?
The provider,
Oh, Verizon Wireless. Now, initially Verizon. We've put this in the hands of AT&T. We put it in the hands of T-Mobile, and we're reaching out with the wireless service providers from the towers as well. We're just waiting to hear back. A lot of them won't tell us until after zoning is complete. So we may get better feedback after the hearing today on who needs it and who doesn't.
Is this tower gonna have anything at all to do with the internet for this area, for the areas where these towers are going up at all?
The initial thing that's going on, it is Verizon Wireless. If you have Verizon, they have the hotspots available and those sorts of things that'll provide the internet. We are marketing it to wireless internet providers that will come in and hang antennas just for the sole purpose of providing internet out there. I don't know what their timeframes are to provide coverage to the areas, but we're trying to get the tower up and then chase after those folks and try to get them to hang as many antennas as they can up there to provide the coverage. But I don't know their timelines on that at all.
Do you have plans for more towers if you're talking about a 3 mile range? I mean, that means we gotta go far under it, I guess.
Yes, ma'am. I've applied it. Tomorrow I will have a site applied in the High Towers area that will directly link with this tower. I'm working on a tower in the Milton area, and then there's 2 other areas in the county that I'm pursuing, but I need to make sure Verizon needs them first, or AT&T. But yes, ma'am, we're looking at several more towers to try to provide coverage to every place in Caswell County.
Well, we definitely need more than one in Locust Hill, because when you go toward Caswell, you don't have a signal or anything. I mean, it just drops your call.
Where was that?
the one in Locust Hill on West 158.
Oh, yes,
Pretty much a
that's,
dead zone. Pretty much a dead zone out that way.
it is. We're trying to solve it. That's the West Caswell site that should be constructed in September.
The one in September is for West Caswell. Is that what you said?
Yes, ma'am. We should start construction late September on that site.
It's gonna be right there at the bridge, almost at the crossroad, just for you.
That is a dead spot.
We're gonna go 2 to 3 miles, we're gonna need towers like trees. You know what I mean, my goodness, is the investment in towers that only put out that far worth it? I mean, you would think that it would go farther than 2 to 3, I mean, Rudy Foster, Pelham, Allison Road and Pelham. And our service is terrible too, and my wife works from home and she can't work, on a day like today, she can't work because there's no internet service. So she has to sit around or go into the work site and hope they'll let her come in to work because of poor internet service. So if it's only gonna go 2 to 3 miles, I'm not, you're gonna need towers like trees. You would think that they would go farther than that.
Is that standard that none of them go more than 3 miles?
It's pretty standard. It used to be that they would get a little more distance out of the tower. But with all of the new technology and everybody streaming, video and it's just taken so much data that they didn't have a choice but to kind of shrink the coverage areas down a little bit to be able to handle it all. So yeah, that's becoming the absolutely the norm.
Is broadband internet tied into that anyway?
With whatever Verizon provides. So Verizon, you can get broadband internet through Verizon. So initially, that's what'll be available, and then as soon as we can get other companies to come in and put equipment on the tower, we're going to be marketing it to them and trying to get them in there. But as soon as that happens, then there'll be better broadband internet than what just Verizon provides.
I was on the 21st Century Committee for Caswell County years ago when it was called that. They were talking about broadband internet. I mean, that was been 10 years or so ago. So it seems like we should be farther along than we are with broadband internet, especially with, back during the past year when the kids were at home trying to get on the line for school, people at home trying to work. It was almost like, trying to run through a rainstorm and not get wet as far as having service. You just no service. People just don't have service out there in these rural areas. And I mean, you hear it all over it's all over the nation. It's not just Caswell County, it's all over the nation. It's on the news all the time that people don't have any internet at all. I mean, I thank God for what we have, but Caswell County is just, 10 years ago, and we ain't got any farther along than we are. We need to take a closer look at that. When our kids are just as important as kids anywhere else when they go to school, is now that more and more people are working from home, internet is more and more important. And my wife's job is telling her they're not coming back to work, so they're going to be working from home from now on. So, I mean, we need better service in Caswell County all around. We approve of.
I couldn't agree more. Caswell County has been dramatically underserved. And I think this big push of everyone working from home has really made some folks see it. Verizon has certainly seen it. Vertical Bridge has seen it. This is the third tower that I've brought to the county in the past year and a half, with a fourth going hopefully on next agenda, and then a couple more to follow it. So I know that Verizon is hearing it and seeing it, and they're trying to fix it. And these are the steps to do so. I'd like to say that you'll have great coverage tomorrow, but it does take a little bit of time to build out these infrastructures, and you're probably not going to see great coverage out in those areas until late this year, early next year before you really see it. But it is coming, and these are the steps that make it happen.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. So the subject before us today is the Prospect Hill site. Are there any other comments or input?
I have thoughts, questions, and concerns. And I am Candace Santos-Separana, lifelong resident of Prospect Hill and adjacent property owner to the Prospect Hill site cell phone tower. My questions are, this is strictly cell phone, is supposed to be for cell phones, so this really isn't going to be beneficial for internet services unless somebody, unless individual citizens purchase or go into hotspots, correct? Through their cell
So
phone.
initially, this tower is being built for cell phone usage, but it's being built not by Verizon. It's being built by Vertical Bridge. Vertical Bridge is a tower owner. It's in their best interest to get as many providers on that tower as they can. So rather than just being a Verizon or an AT&T that sits back and makes money on a tower, the only way Vertical Bridge makes money on a tower is to go find those additional companies to provide the coverage out there. A tower owner coming in is the best possible scenario for better coverage. They're going to be out actively marketing to those folks. Yes, we can't control when those folks decide to hang the antennas out there. I know there's a lot of grants that are going in place to give them incentive to hang antennas out in these areas. But you guys as citizens are the ones that are going to drive that. You got to find the local wireless service providers and just start peppering them and let them know there's a tower out here. You can hang your antennas on it. We're doing the same from our side. But until they hear the screaming from your side that tells them they're going to make money by doing so, they're less likely to hang the antennas. So we're providing the infrastructure for them to provide the service to you, and we're marketing it actively to them to do so. I just can't control how quickly they decide they want to provide the service to you. I'm just giving them the means to do so.
There's obviously no denying that internet service is needed throughout the entire county. It's pretty much dead in Prospect Hill like it is in Locust Hill and all other places. I mean, I can't even use my phone unless I go out outside on my front porch. And so I do rely on landline when it works. But, I'm fearful that, although we need a cell tower, if you said it's only within a 2 to 3 mile range. So getting a cell tower and then hoping after constructing the cell tower, we're hoping that we're gonna bring carriers in to help build the internet. I don't know this. I hope that the county is not going to rely on a cell phone tower to help, with the infrastructure of internet at all. But another concern that I have, and I know this is many, many parts, questions, thoughts, and concerns, but is there any research on the health effects of a cell phone tower?
There are.
For humans and wildlife, for that matter.
Sorry, guys. There is all kinds of research. The FCC has all kinds of publications out there that don't even really allow it to be addressed a whole lot in public hearings. But I can tell you that there's the amount of what they call radiation that comes off of a 150-foot cell phone tower. If you're standing at the base of it, it's about the same amount of energy that's put off by a baby monitor. The holding a phone to your head is far different than what the tower is providing. It's very, very low emissions, and the FCC, if you want to just jump online and look at it, the FCC has all kinds of emission studies and those sorts of things on cell phone towers, and they control it 100%.
Mr. Barker, don't you have to complete a environmental study before you put this up?
We do. We have to register with the FAA and FCC. As a part of that, we have to do full NEPA, full environmental, phase 1 geotech investigations, have to comply with State Historic Preservation Office and notify all of the Indian tribes in the areas and work with them to get approvals. It's very extensive, and they certainly make sure that we dot our I's and cross our T's.
Can that be provided to the public?
I'm sorry?
Can that environmental study be provided to the public?
Oh, sure. It's we have to provide it to the FCC, and I believe it's public record then, but we can absolutely provide it to the county.
I have one more question. How will this affect property value for the adjacent property owners?
I would encourage you to talk to a real estate agent. I have done so. I've actually had property valuation studies done on these towers as a part of zoning hearings. Every real estate agent that you speak to will tell you the first thing that people ask when they're looking at a home is, how's my cell phone coverage? If they don't have it, they don't want to live there. So, used to be that property values, people would say, I don't want to live near a tower, and it's just drastically changed over the years. I used to have opposition in zoning hearings. It's drastically changed over the years. Everybody wants coverage. Everybody needs coverage. It's become more of a lifeline than not. So a tower in the area, every real estate agent I talk to says it increases your property value rather than decreases it. It makes it a more desirable property for buyers.
Mr. Johnson, I have a question and maybe a comment before we
Yes, sir, Mr.
close out. So, lots of concerns here from folks about, internet service. I think we've had those conversations in some of our past meetings. I think we all share those concerns. which department in the county, and maybe this is a question for Mr. Hogelman, but which department in the county is responsible for a comprehensive plan for county internet service?
Do you want me to answer that?
Sure, Mr. Hogan.
So the best answer is really no single department is necessarily responsible. The county started an initiative several years ago to try and capture some grant funding. But since the state doesn't allow, for example, counties or municipalities to be internet service providers, since our ordinance doesn't regulate internet deployment in any specific way, then it was really left up to the county to try to address that however they might want to. So after talking with the county manager about it, he allowed me to start an initiative to that end a few years ago, and thankfully we successfully captured about $1.5 million in grant funding. That funding goes from the state to a provider, and so it's the provider's responsibility now to use that state grant funding to deploy internet throughout the county. So as a county, since we can't provide, since we can't really regulate, since we can't mandate, typically the best thing that we can ever do is try to help make connections, try to help streamline processes, try to help talk with applicants about things that may come up that can help to kind of streamline their process. But there's not really any single department that's necessarily responsible for it. It's more or less at this point in the county manager's hands and in his department, but there's no special department that's kind of tasked with regulating it. Every county and every town kind of handles it differently.
Yeah, so the planning board, or you don't see the planning board as having a role that could possibly advance this in any way?
I think if the planning board wanted to, you guys could certainly take that up as an issue. The first thing that comes to mind is the comprehensive plan that was put together several years ago, talks about the lack of broadband infrastructure. And I think a few key points in possibly improving it, but it doesn't lay the responsibility at the feet of anyone in particular. So I think that there's room there if the planning board wanted to take it up as a priority and then maybe make a presentation or an official motion to the county commissioners. And I think that would certainly be an option that the planning board could do.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
One more quick question.
Yes, ma'am, Ms.
You
Williams.
said $1.5 million was that allocated for Caswell County?
It was allocated for Caswell County, but not to Caswell County. So
Where is it?
it's in the hands, or I guess it's being gifted to River Street whenever they kind of move forward. So it was initially awarded to a company called Open Broadband LLC out of the Charlotte area, but they ended up not holding up their end of the contract with the state of North Carolina. So the state of North Carolina voided that contract and opened up a special application round, and River Street Wireless won the funding for that special application round. They're a broadband provider out of Wilkes County, North Carolina, and I think they already have some operations in the area. I think they're already in Person County, if I remember correctly, or some other areas. They have a partnership with, they may be in outlets. I know that they have a partnership with Piedmont Electric, for example. And something you mentioned earlier reminded me of a piece of information that they had put out. If you go to this website, join.buildriverstreet.com, and submit your name, information, where you live, all that good stuff, that will more or less kind of put you on their list of people that they know in Caswell County need internet. So again, that's join.buildriverstreet.com.
And how long have they had this $1.5 million?
The special round of funding happened in December, and I think they were awarded the money in January. So it's relatively recent. It's just the past few months.
Is there a deadline on when they can jump off?
2 years?
I believe it's 2.
Yeah, I want to say it's 2 to 5 years. So as I mentioned to Mr. Oakley, we're in a tough situation as a county because we're not steering the process. It's really a contract between the state and the broadband provider. As a county, we can kind of help with things and make connections and inform the public with websites and things of that nature. But ultimately, it's just between the state and the broadband provider.
It seems like we need an advocate for Caswell County to get this going. That needs to be-
Well, we were awarded, in the first round of grant funding from the state of North Carolina, we were awarded the most money out of any county. So we actually did quite a bit when the money was available to get there, but, I mean, I'll admit it's frustrating. It takes a long time, and it's very frustrating.
Yeah, and I'll say this, Matthew Hogan, you were a wonderful advocate in that process with the 2020 committee and program, and passing out petitions throughout the entire county, getting people involved. And I know there were several thousand applications, physical applications submitted to you that you and a group of local folks had to actually manually submit to the 2020 Connect process. So
Right.
you were a wonderful advocate. And I remember that process very well. So,
Thank you.
in any event,
Mr. John,
yes, sir, Commissioner.
just as a further piece of information, back to this open broadband, we had a meeting with the state, with Senator Phil Berger, and we sent 3 representatives from Caswell County, including the chairman and the county manager. And were, I would have to say, highly instrumental in getting that contract removed from open broadband because they hadn't done anything, and reassigned, awarded to River Street. Who has made a valiant start to this process. I know they've had that survey or application online for at least 6 months. And if you don't remember that web address, just go to River Street broadband, Google that, and look, you can find that survey to sign up for. I've been signed up for at least a year. Anything to let you sign up. So that's the only way we're going to get it. Economics determine your broadband coverage at the end of the day. It's density. And the more people we get signed up, the more people will enable this process. It's very simple, unfortunately.
Thank you, Commissioner. So as it relates to the public hearing at hand, the subject of the Prospect Hill site, anyone else give comments as it relates to the Prospect Hill Tower? Hearing none, Mr. Barker, I think now will be the appropriate time for you to present your application or any comments on your behalf as it relates to the site.
Certainly. As Mr. Hoagland said, this is a 300-foot communications tower. It is a self-supporting tower, no guy wires associated with it. It's on roughly 67 acres of property that borders Orange County down off State Route 86 in Prospect Hill. It'll be built in a 100 feet by 100 feet area, less than a quarter of an acre, and wholly contained within that area. Just the same as the last site, no fumes, no odors, no noise. It's a silent neighbor that isn't impeding any adjacent properties. Meets setbacks of tower height a little bit more, but meets setbacks of tower height from any property lines. And all of the towers that we construct are designed with fail points. So in the highly unlikely event of a failure, the tower doesn't fall like a tree. It actually will collapse upon itself with the fail points that are built in. I could get into the lack of coverage and the way that coverage is necessary out there, but I think the letters from all the citizens that live out there probably spoke to it better than I could. It affects emergency services as well. Not only can people not call 911, but when you've got emergency responders responding out there, they can't communicate very well either. It definitely creates a public safety issue. I don't have a whole lot other than that. I mean, the nearest tower to this tower is 4 miles due west, not even covering this area. It's definitely an area that is highly lacking in coverage, and I'll just leave it with that and answer any questions or concerns the board may have.
Mr. Barker, do you know where the closest residence or structure would be to the proposed tower site?
I don't. I'm 827 feet from the property line to the north, and I believe that nearest residential structure would be beyond that line to the north, and I don't know the exact distance, but I would guess 1,000 feet.
And to the south would be Orange County, the Orange County line.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and Mr. Barker, I may not have heard you, but were there engineering studies provided during the application process? Can you hear me?
Did you hear that?
I did. I'm looking real quick here. I don't know that I did provide engineering study on this. You know what? I did not get an engineering study from Verizon on this. Once they agreed and signed up to lease the thing, with the nearest towers being over 4 miles away, I just didn't even request it from them. I certainly can provide an engineering study that shows the hole in the coverage and the way this tower fills it.
Okay, and then the logistics of the self-support tower in the event that it was ever damaged. Is there any information or study you could provide in reference to that?
I can. We get a fall zone letter from our engineers on these towers. We usually submit it whenever we submit for the building permit, and it just basically gives the design characteristics that should tell the fail points, the weaker points that are built into the structure that'll cause it to bend and fold basically over on itself. But when we apply for building permit, we typically provide those letters along with the tower engineered drawings.
Thank you, Mr. Barker. Any questions or comments from the group? Commissioner, let's start.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Barker, did you say you are in contact with River Street on contacting them to put up their wireless transmitters?
I have not reached out to River Street specifically. No, sir. I'm ready to reach out to everybody. Vertical Bridge likely has a relationship with River Street. They would be the ones that typically reach out to them. I've written down everything that was just said on this call with River Street Wireless, and I'm going to actively pursue it. It's not necessarily my best interest. It's Vertical Bridge's best interest, and I am a consultant for them, but I'm going to reach out to River Street specifically myself, and then I'm assuming Vertical Bridge is already doing so on the towers that constructed in Caswell.
I would plead with you to contact everybody we possibly can, and if we double up on them, good for us. And that would include Piedmont Electric Cooperative.
Yeah, if I may just add a note, I spoke with the county manager late last week who told me to go ahead and do that. So Mr. Barker, I owe you an email connecting you with the folks over at River Street. And earlier during the public comments, I wrote a note to myself to do that. So I'm going to get you that email this afternoon.
As well as Piedmont.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I have been dealing with a few other wireless internet service providers they started off in the Pennsylvania area, and they've been slowly working their way y'all's direction. And I've been working with them, trying to get them to come in and into these areas and provide coverage as well. And then, once I heard about River Street, I'm all over that. I will be in contact with them probably before the end of the day.
And one other question, I'm never ashamed to show my ignorance. We are in the process of deploying more of these, what we call 800 phones in the Viper network. Does this tower or these type of towers host any of that network or that coverage? Do you even A, do you know what I'm talking about? And B, do I know what I'm talking about, I guess?
I am not familiar with it.
Okay.
So it's running in the 800 megahertz band, and it's called a Viper network.
Yes, yes, sir.
That's what you said.
So just based on the band being 800, it's going to cover drastically further than
Yeah.
what one of these would cover. My guess would be it's only voice and text
Yeah.
because of the drastic amount of distance they have to cover. But yes, this would be a prime candidate for it. They're going to want to hang those antennas as high as they possibly can. But with that the low frequency range, they should broadcast a very long way. And like I said, it's going to be limited as far as your capabilities, but voice and text, it should give you for, I would guess, 8 or 10 miles probably in every direction.
Okay. I'll pursue that further with DMS and emergency director. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Barker. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Barker, how many carriers can be on a cell tower?
I designed them for 4, but they're over designed. So with the wireless service providers and everything, I would guess 6. It just depends on what their loading is. So I designed it for 4, but I designed it for the absolute heaviest load that any of them would possibly put on it. And usually I'm over designed by about 25% by the time they start loading. The wireless internet providers have very, very small loading as far as antennas and wind. It's really wind area that affects the structurals. So I designed it for 4 full loading carriers, and then once they start installing, it's usually 5 or 6 that can install on it.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the board? Mr. Hoagland, from your standpoint and your position, based upon the application, it's your determination as far as how the application relates to the county rules and regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I didn't see any defects in the application. The biggest thing that took just kind of a careful review was the setback standard. But since the county recently reduced the setback standard to 100%, then this meets that at 103%. Our ordinance is big on making sure that lighting is on the tower if it's a certain height, and this has that, fencing, and this has that, landscaping, distance from occupied residences, things of that nature. So I didn't see any issues with the application whatsoever.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hoagland.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, comments from the public as it relates to the Prospect Hill site?
Well, I'm wondering, and you guys may have already discussed this, but have you all already talked about putting things on this tower like warning systems, like tornadoes coming through? Have you all at all discussed that on these towers to warn the community about impending possible disasters? Is that all? Will it hold? I mean, have you all discussed it at all?
And I didn't hear a lot of it, but are we talking about tornado sirens?
Yes, will this tower be able to support one?
So the tower will support tornado sirens. The only issue is what type of sirens the county wants to put out there. We offer it up free of charge. If the county wants to hang tornado sirens on this tower, they can hang tornado sirens on this tower at no charge to the county for the life of the tower. But it can't be the rotating type. It can't have movement. So it has to be the ones with the horns that face every direction. It just doesn't work. The rotating types need to be on a single pole design, and it just doesn't work on these. But if the county deploys the types of sirens that are the horns that will go in every direction, then they are absolutely welcome to hang them on this tower.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Barker. All right. There's no further discussion about the site plan for the Prospect Hill site for Burke Bridge and Mr. Barker. There's no further discussion. We need to close the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion to.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion by Mr. Foster. Second by Mr. Daniel to close the public hearing. All those in favor, please let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. All right, so that concludes the public hearing. Mr. Hoagland, is there any type of format we need to do to take a vote on this process? I suppose we just deal with the evidence that was presented.
Yeah, there is instruction in the UDO on the action taken at the following a public hearing. It says, following a public hearing and presentation of evidence, the planning board shall take one of the following actions. Approve the application as submitted, approve the applications with conditions or modifications, refer the application for additional information or input, or deny the application in writing.
Thank you for that explanation.
Yes, sir.
Heard testimony from Mr. Hoagland as the county planner. We had public input from citizens present here today. Also had public comments that Mr. Hoagland read, as well as the application itself and the testimony from Mr. Barker, Q&A with board members. Is there any discussion about the public? Okay, hearing none, what is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve the application.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Oakley, second by Mr. Harris. Is that to approve, Mr. Oakley?
Yes.
Motion to approve the permit. All those in favor, please let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Next on the new business, Matthew Hoagland, originally we were to discuss the Southeast Caswell zoning proposal.
Yeah.
Could you give us some background information about the timelines and the requests?
Yes, sir, I'll be happy to. And I'd actually planned to do that during the planning department update portion of the agenda, but I'll be more than happy to do that now. So board members at their regular meeting on June the 7th, the county commissioners made a motion and gave a directive regarding zoning. And I'll read that for you now. The motion states, upon consideration of many actions, including literally hundreds of public comments, hearings, moratorium, and other deliberations, the Caswell County manager is directed to properly notify and set a public hearing concerning the proposed Article 5 zoning districts, which include which include changes to the existing article and the addition of sections 5.6 through and including section 5.14, as well as the table of permitted uses and Southeast Caswell zoning map dated June 2021, as amended per the respective attached versions. The date of this hearing will be set for June 21st, 2021, and will include a summary of the conditional zoning districts proposed to be presented by the county manager and the county planning director at the hearing. In addition, the county manager is directed to transmit a copy of the proposed Article 5 as referenced above to the Caswell County Planning Board for their official comment regarding, quote, consistency with the Caswell County Land Use Plan. Such comment will be required to be presented to the Caswell County Board of Commissioners during the June 21st, 2021 meeting. Despite the motion, the UDO stipulates that any proposed revision to the UDO must be submitted at least 30 days prior to planning board consideration. So at the soonest, as you heard in a couple of the public comments, there is the option, if the board so chose, to have a special meeting. I think the earliest date at which that can happen will be July the 7th. That'd be 30 days after the commissioner's motion. But barring that, it would be just a regular agenda item at the July 27th regular planning board meeting.
And just as a timeline, Mr. Hogan, if it's on the agenda for the July meeting, then basically the planning board's role would be to review the proposal.
Yes, sir.
send a recommendation.
Yeah, state law requires that any zoning map change or the adoption of new zoning undergo certain procedures, public hearings and things of that nature. One of the required procedures is that the planning board must first review and then make a determination of consistency with the comprehensive plan back to the county commissioners. Now, the planning board could review and say, hey, this is great, and then ultimately the county commissioners decide they don't like it, and vice versa. The planning board could say, well, we don't really like this plan, we don't think it's consistent, or whatever the case may be, and then the county commissioners could take a different action. Ultimately, the county commissioners have the final say, but state law does require that procedure play out and that the planning board have a review and make a recommendation one way or the other to the commissioners.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes, sir.
So we wouldn't be able to actually review it today because it wouldn't meet the.
Correct. Yeah, not enough time has gone by to review. Certainly, if you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer any kind of questions, but in terms of really digging into the details and making an agenda item and things of that nature, it would need to wait.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Hope. Any other updates?
Yes, sir. I do have a couple of updates. In the past, the board has been very interested in any kind of transportation related updates. And so I'm happy to announce to you a couple of items that I've been given, and I've got a few printouts here. I'll just hand these out to you. This is, if you want to pass those around, please. This is a news release from the NCDOT dated June the 10th. Crews can begin work as soon as on a project that will make the road smoother and last longer in Caswell County. About 37 miles of roadway making up the section of NC Highway 119 and 18 secondary road sections will be milled and resurfaced. Per the $3.8 million contract with the Department of Transportation recently awarded to Adams Construction Company of Roanoke, Virginia, the work can begin as early as June 28th. It should be completed by the summer of 2022. This work will take place under lane closures, and drivers should use caution as crews will be working near travel lanes throughout the project. And then I was also given recently a checklist by our county manager of certain other projects that will affect the county. This came to us in mid-May of 2021, but it's more or less kind of a checklist and a timeline for various projects, beginning with 21 and 22 resurfacing of various highways and other roadways, the 19 specific roads there in the bottom. And I'm not sure what AST 39 roads is, but this is just kind of a general checklist and timeline, as I mentioned, and I just kind of wanted to get that to the board as well as more or less an information item. Mr. Oakley, I can email those to you if you'd like.
Yeah, be great. Thanks.
Is resurfacing mean tar and gravel?
I believe so, yeah. I think there may be a slight widening. You know, a couple of years ago, they resurfaced and widened 158 slightly, you know, maybe a foot or two on each side. I would assume this would be very similar to that.
This is for public knowledge.
Yes, sir.
I see on the back where the construction of passing lanes is back on the radar. I know a few years ago, it come up and then it fell by the wayside.
That's right.
And the passing lanes would basically be intermittent third lanes.
Yeah, if I remember, so at the high traffic areas, they would have an optional third passing lane. You know, it's been one of those things where I have kind of fallen out from the specific details of this. We were meeting, I think, on a quarterly basis in the county. A representative from Piedmont Triad Regional Council would come up, and I'm on a committee with the mayor and a county representative and obviously somebody from PTRC. And we were doing quarterly meetings, but all that was kind of shut down with COVID, and we haven't met since then. So this is a very handy checklist. I think it was just emailed to the county manager, and then he just shared it with me last week.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yes, sir. But that's all I have for a department update.
All right, next on the agenda, we have an adjournment. This time I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Chairman Johnson, I'm not sure if this is the right time or not, but could we, I guess, I don't know if this is in terms of a motion or how we should proceed, but I would like to make a motion that we try to schedule a special meeting at our earliest convenience. I guess that would be July 7th or 8th to review the zoning proposal.
Yes, sir. Okay. Mr. Hoagland, said July 7th would be the earliest.
Yes, sir.
And if we could do something in the evening, that would be my preference, but can, whatever's convenient for the board.
I'll be out of town, so you'll be out of town.
Whatever the board's earliest convenience would be.
Yes, sir. So we have a motion before us by Mr. Oakley to hold a special meeting on July 7th. Is that correct, Mr. Oakley?
Or the earliest convenience for the board.
I guess it would be up to the board members to determine the best possible time. Depending on schedule.
Yeah, I realize a lot of people are on vacation that week. So
It's so close to the 4th of July. A lot of them might be unavailable out of town or something.
When will you be back, Mr. Boston?
I have like 20.
What we need what would be the possibility that having it on our next board meeting in July the 27th?
Yeah, if the board doesn't take any action for a special meeting, it'll just automatically be on the agenda for the 27th.
Well, Mr. Oakley, board, we have a motion before us by Mr. Oakley. Is there a second?
The motion is for the meeting to be on the 7th.
You may want to clarify, Mr. Oakley, July 7th or the earliest convenient date.
yeah, exactly. I think a lot of people have a difficulty with the week of the 4th if due to vacation. Obviously want to have something where the majority of the board can attend. So if that week is not convenient, then maybe, we could look at, one evening the following week.
Well, I want to.
I can propose a specific date if you would prefer me to do so, I guess. So maybe the evening of the 13th, maybe that would suit everyone's purposes. That would be a Tuesday.
I guess it could be as the pleasure of the board. Reasonable. We have your motion, Mr. Oakley, but as members, do we all want to check our schedules to try
Sure.
to get Mr. Hoagland here? And then, would that be okay, Mr. Hoagland, if we could check our schedules and get back with you?
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
See what would be the most appropriate time.
Yeah.
You'll be back the 20th.
I'll second that motion that Mr. Oakley made.
For the earliest possible date or Thursday. Okay. Okay. So we got a motion by Mr. Oakley, second by Mr. Foster to, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Oakley, to have a special meeting at the earliest possible date prior to our next meeting.
Yes.
All right. Any further discussion? Commissioner?
Just like to make a comment that if you wait till the 27th, My calendar's got so many entries on it, I lost track. I was trying to get it done by the, before the next commissioners meeting, but we've already passed.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Unless you do it before the 19th. If you have a special meeting before the 19th, then that will enable the commission second meeting in the month, we can then act on the proposal, assuming we get a public hearing meeting before then, which I'm sure we can. So, speaking for the board, I would greatly appreciate if that could be done
Prior to the 19th.
prior to the 19th. Because I'm for one, would like to see the docket clear of 200 or 300 public comments. Not that I don't appreciate them, not that we don't want to hear them, but I think we already know what the public wants.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and of course, in order to have the special meeting, we need to have a quorum, which is why it's so important to make sure we can check our schedules and make sure we can all attend. So, all right, any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Oakley, second by Mr. Foster to have a special meeting as early as possible, or as convenient, when it's convenient for everyone. Is that correct, Mr. Oakley? I'm sorry.
That's correct. And I think Commissioner Ostrikers, information is important as well, since, if we can get that accomplished before the 19th, then that serves the county well.
Thank you, Mr. Oakley.
And feel free to just call me or email me with your availability, and I'll start putting a calendar together.
Thank you, Mr. Oakley.
Yes, sir.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor, please let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Oakley. All right, any further business to come before the board? All right. Hearing none, we have an adjournment. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Motion by Mr. Daniels, second by Mr. Harris to adjourn. All those in favor, please let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Adjourn. Thanks, everyone. And folks,